caucuses continue to be a subject of contention for good reason, because the inconsistencies remain. We don't really know who the real winner is, although based on what we know right now, the individual who won when it comes to the popular vote is in fact Bernie Sanders. There is some question as to who won the most in the pledged delegate count. And there's one mainstream media source that has decided to cover this in a responsible way, and that's actually the Associated Press, which has said that they refuse to declare a winner because of all the inconsistencies and inaccuracies that have been reported. Now, here's what we know so far based on what the New York Times is reporting. And again, the New York Times is taking a different, going in a different direction from the Associated Press. They're reporting that Pete Buttigieg has taken 13 pledged delegates from Iowa's maligned caucuses, and Senator Sanders of Vermont has won 12. However, there's one pledged delegate who remains, which means that if this pledged delegate goes to Bernie Sanders, it could be a tie. The AP has announced Thursday afternoon that it would not declare a winner in Iowa's first in the nation contest, but the allocation provides new clarity, not really, about the accumulation of national convention delegates that are necessary to win the Democratic presidential nomination. The Associated Press calculated the distribution of 40 of Iowa's 41 national convention delegates. It was not immediately clear why the 41st delegate was not allocated, but it may have been withheld because the news service did not declare a winner in the race. That leaves the possibility that Sanders could tie Buttigieg in pledged delegates. So I just want to quickly go to what the Associated Press had to say about this, because again, I commend them for reporting on this story responsibly, which cannot be said of other mainstream media sources. The Associated Press calls a race when there is a clear indication of a winner. Because of a tight margin between former Mayor Pete Buttigieg and Senator Bernie Sanders and the irregularities in this year's caucus process, it is not possible to determine a winner at this point. And in a subsequent article, it was also written that there is evidence the party has not accurately tabulated some of its results, including those released late Thursday that the party reported as complete. The AP's tabulation of the party's results are at 99% of precincts reporting, with data missing from one of the 1,765 precincts, among other issues. So they're saying, look, we don't have all the results yet. There have been errors in the way this has been tabulated. So we're not playing this game. We're not declaring a winner. And I think that that is the right way to report on it, especially when Tom Perez has demanded recanvassing, and it appears that they are going to go in that direction. But I wanted to get everyone else's thoughts on this story. It's just infuriating and maddening that it's playing out the way that it has.
Yeah, so as the special coverage producer of the network, one of several, I didn't actually think coming into this week that I wouldn't actually really know the Iowa caucus results that happened on Monday. On Friday, the day of the New Hampshire debate, I mean, like we've in the news have been covering this like day to day to day, and it just seems like every day is a new layer of complete incompetency by the Iowa Democratic Party, the Democrats, everything that kind of went into this. And it sucks because a lot of the media narrative, if you haven't been soothingly listening to a lot of like your leftist media diet, is that Pete Buttigieg came out with a victory because he just like had the right timing on that. And I don't know, we're doing this before the debate. I don't know what's gonna happen then, that might change some things, but I hope that it becomes clear at the very least that the Iowa results are muddy and both Pete and Bernie came out very strongly.
Yeah.
Oh, and Biden got creamed.
And that Biden did not perform nearly as well as he had hoped. He came in at fourth. And even with the recanvassing, I don't think that result is gonna change because there's such a giant gap between Biden and the top three. So look, this doesn't look good for Biden, you're right. And in the grand scheme of things, Iowa matters because of the momentum that it can give the front runner. It's not as though Iowa, in terms of the amount of delegates, is gonna make a giant difference in the outcome of the primaries. But this did help propel Buttigieg a little bit going into New Hampshire. For instance, there is a poll from Monmouth indicating that he rose in the polls by 8 percentage points in New Hampshire.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing here, I mean, I've just been really bristling about all of this because what we see, even with this New York Times article, are spins on a situation that actually, if you actually look at the evidence and the data itself, it's very different than the way in which the New York Times is spinning this. First of all, the New York Times frames this article as Buttigieg having won more state delegate equivalents. State delegate equivalents do not matter in national pledge delegates.
Absolutely.
And that is very misleading because they actually say something that's, I think, more or less factually inaccurate in this situation. This is one. Two, Senator Sanders won more than 6,000 votes in a small state than any other candidate, including Pete Buttigieg. So that means, where votes and democracy actually matters, Senator Sanders won, not Buttigieg. Third, this is not going to work in the long term. This is really what I believe. Mainstream media, of course, can assist candidates that are sort of floundering or maybe invisible, like Bloomberg or Pete Buttigieg, who's sort of floundering and has no support with the Black community whatsoever.
Literally 0%.
People, yeah. I mean, you all have been slamming it on this.
You can definitely look at my Twitter handle, Mayor Pete has no Black friends, to let you know about this point.
There you go.
As you were saying.
Yeah, so it can assist on some level, but look at the record amounts of fundraising that Bernie Sanders accrued since then. I think this time people realize in this country, now that they know who Bernie is, and I'm saying this as a surrogate, so that bias I want to put on the table. I think this time people understand who he is and what he stands for, and people don't trust the mainstream media to some level. It has some ceiling, but not much. But the area where I'm really going off, if you'll let me, is this app thing. I mean, you
have a lot of expertise, so I'm actually really happy you're on the panel to discuss it, because there were so many issues from the beginning, starting with the app malfunctioning. Yeah. So can you talk about that a little bit?
So first of all, Shadow, the name of the app is not created by an organization called Shadow. It's an organization that's former Hillary Clinton staffers, as you all have reported on. I've been glued to your coverage. Yours and Democracy Now's, they're like my two favorites.
Thank you.
So that's one. Second of all, people did not even know, voters, and in fact many people in the caucus precincts, including precinct organizers, did not even know that they were forced to depend on an app, and an app whose organization was receiving money, contracts from Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. So that's actually, or at least they were getting some funds from them. Am I not correct about that?
Yes, you are correct about that. Over $40,000.
Yeah, so I'm not alleging corruption or conspiracy
theory here.
There's corruption.
I'm gonna allege it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I would also like to say
what's
that,
up here?
Based on what I've seen from the tech side, there's also just a lot of planned out incompetence. This isn't the kind of app you could just download on the App Store. It had to be sideloaded a certain way. If you weren't necessarily tech savvy, you wouldn't know how to get that app on there. Or you'd see scary warnings saying, warning, this app makes your phone vulnerable if you do it. So it was just a process it wasn't tested. It just seems like it was corruption with incompetence. That's why I say it. Every single time we unpeel layers from this, it's just more and more of a disaster.
Yes.
We are blindly delegating ourselves to privately owned, hidden black box technology without even realizing in this particular case that we had to be dependent on that technology. We don't know how that technology was built. We don't know who are the forces behind that technology. This wasn't even known by people who are running these caucuses. And they were actually just told that they had no choice but to report these results using this app coming from a shady political agenda. I think we can say that.
Yep.
They had no idea that they had to depend on that app until apparently the day before or day of. There was no back end. And the only reason why we have the paper trail to realize that Bernie won, let me just say that again and again, is because Bernie's and we, our campaign insisted on this happening, insisted on a full disclosure paper trail.
That's right.
So look, I mean, this is what happens when we think technology solves our problems without scrutinizing who is behind the technology and the political and economic forces that shape this technology. It's yet another crack on Bernie's campaign by the mainstream media and the establishment and the corporate neoliberal system.
So I do want to add one thing, something that I think is a bit of a silver lining to this story. I think that Bernie Sanders has realized, and this was really important for him to realize, that he's not just dealing with individuals who are interested in running a fair primary race, okay? These are people who are willing to cheat. I mean, Pete Buttigieg declaring victory on the night of the Iowa caucuses, knowing full well that 0% of the results were reported, 0%.
Some websites had 2.
Just decided.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, just
and then
decided
he sort
to
of
declare.
backtracked it afterward, and then he kind of leaned back into it.
And then he leaned back into it, exactly. So I think the upside to this is that Bernie Sanders has realized you're not dealing with people who want to play fair. They're gonna play these dirty tricks. And so you have to go hard, okay? And I'm not saying that he needs to play dirty. I like the fact that he's still relying on facts. He's still relying on a fair race. He's not doing anything shady or underhanded. That's what I meant to say. But he needs to go hard against these candidates when it comes to who they are and what they represent. And he did that today. I love this video. Watch Bernie Sanders calling Buttigieg out fairly, in my opinion. Take a look.
I'm reading some headlines from newspapers about Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg has most exclusive billionaire donors of any Democrat. That was from Forbes, The Hill. Pete Buttigieg tops billionaire donor list. Fortune. Pete Buttigieg takes lead as big business candidate in 2020 field. Washington Post. Pete Buttigieg lures even closer look from Wall Street donors following strong Iowa caucus performance. Forbes magazine. Here are the billionaires backing Pete Buttigieg's presidential campaign.
Yes, Bernie, read the news to us. I love it. Right?
And
Call him out.
Bernie yesterday in the press conference, which I know you all were covering, had a swagger to him.
Yeah, that wink.
He had a swagger with that wink, but did you see how much energy he had?
Yes.
Did you see how much energy he had?
He had big delegate energy.
There's a certain idea, there's not overconfidence at all in our campaign. There's humility, but there's an understanding that this time it's different.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.